Today, the Federal Reserve will hold its first rate meeting of the year, and it's expected it will leave interest rates unchanged. Joining us now for more is Jeanna Smialek. She's a Federal Reserve and economy reporter for the New York Times. So you wrote an article this morning that the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, has a delicate balancing act. Walk us through that and why we will likely not see a rate cut today.
Yeah, so this is a somewhat complicated moment for the Fed. They are dealing with on one hand with the fact that inflation is slowing really rapidly. You know, after months and months and months of waiting to see inflation finally cool off, that has started to happen, and it's actually happening more quickly than the Fed had expected. On the other hand, we're seeing a really resilient economy. You know, growth was very strong toward the end of 2023. We're seeing consumer spending data really hold up, even moving into 2024. And so the Fed has to sort of weigh both of those factors. You know, on one hand, inflation's looking really good. On the other hand, given how strong the economy still is, there's a possibility that that strong consumer demand could give companies the ability to keep raising prices, keeping inflation higher down the road. And so they have to sort of weigh both of those against each other as they think about how to set policy.
So the IMF actually upped its global growth forecast, and it cited the strength of the U.S. economy. That's the reason, part of the reason. What are they expecting from the economy in 2024?
They're expecting pretty solid growth. You know, what we have been expecting for sort of months and months and months now is that eventually all of the central bank rate increasing that was happening across the entire globe, you know, it wasn't just the Fed raising interest rates, it was also the European Central Bank, it was the Bank of England, it was sort of the whole kit and caboodle, everybody was raising rates. And that was expected to eventually sort of weigh down economic growth globally. Instead, what we're seeing is that economy is just kind of chugging along. And the reason for that is really because the U.S. economy has been so much stronger than expected. You know, we saw a slight tick up in the global growth forecast, but we saw a giant tick up in the U.S. growth forecast, like 0.6 percentage point. You know, it was a big increase. And so I think it's really a statement about the U.S. economy being much more resilient than anyone had expected, which really comes back to the American consumer. American households are still just spending, and they're spending really robustly. And I think it's been a surprise for a lot of economists and forecasters.
So later this week, Jeanna, as you know, the January jobs report will come out. What are we expecting to see?
We're expecting to see pretty strong hiring. You know, given that this economy seems to have so much sort of vim and vigor behind it, I think economists are looking around and saying, yeah, it's likely that companies are going to continue to add jobs. Where depending on who you ask, the forecasts are anywhere between sort of 180 and 200,000 right now, which would be a very strong job gain for this point in the economic picture. You know, we've had months and months and months of these strong job gains. So the fact that we're still adding people so rapidly to payrolls is sort of surprising. But we've seen, you know, job openings are still strong. We had a very strong job openings and labor turnover survey this week. Unemployment's still very low. It does look like a pretty optimistic labor picture at the moment.
So, Jeanna, one of the things before we wrap it up, as you know, there's the reality, and there are these reports that come out that say what we're talking about here, that the U.S. economy is doing well. The president is probably going to take a victory lap and continue to talk about that on the campaign trail. Then there's the perception, which is the perception that ordinary folks across this country have when it comes to the U.S. economy. During the caucuses in Iowa and the primaries in New Hampshire, our correspondents spoke to a lot of folks, and they say, yeah, I see those reports. But here's what I'm seeing when I go to the supermarket. Here's what I'm seeing when I apply for a job.
And there are layoffs, and maybe we're more attuned to it right now because we're hearing about layoffs, particularly in media.
In media, sure.
Right, but you know, that's
that
good.
Is
that's
happening.
People, yeah.
So help us understand, what should people who are watching this take away from what is a very positive series of reports on the economy versus what they may be feeling when they sit down at home at the kitchen table?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of interesting facets to this story, actually. One is that when you talk to people, when you ask them how they feel about the economy, they'll often say that they don't think the national economy is good, but their own financial situation is good. So like their personal economy is good, but the national economy is bad, which I think is an interesting disconnect and one that we've seen really growing in this cycle. So that's something interesting to note. But I think another point that's important to note is that actually confidence is starting to turn a corner. We saw really, really low confidence during sort of peak inflation times, say like summer 2022, and now it's kind of creeping back up. So I think the takeaway from that is that actually a lot of this has to do with what you just mentioned, which is sort of you go to the grocery store and you see how much more groceries are today than they used to be, which is because of that rapid inflation. And that feels really bad. It feels like something's getting taken away from you. But The good news here is that we're seeing inflation moderate. So that doesn't mean prices are coming down, but it does mean the prices aren't going up as quickly as they previously were. And I think that as people see their wages climb, as people sort of play that game of catch up with the inflation that we've already had, you might see a world where people start to feel a little bit better about this economy.
Well, Biden's hoping that happens before the election.
Yes, she sure is.
Jeanna Smialek, thank you very much.
Thank you.